Greetings, salutations, and all good things in between. What's up, everyone? Matt here. Happy fall time. I got a little fall time stuff going on here, so I like to go out and fly drones every while. Thought I'd give you a little tease of what I did. This is from last year, but yeah, amazing moments you can get right now, right? So, all right, I hope you're having a good week. I hope you've been getting a lot of stuff done, getting out, enjoying it, all that good stuff, right? What do we got for you this week? All right, well, the new reports sample app for the second version, the one that's got the grouped PDF, I got that out. I'll go over that briefly a little bit. I'm going to go over your YouTube comments. There really wasn't that much to do with AppSheet other than the Next 22 thing that they had going on all week. And the big thing, I'm going to do a deep dive today, and I asked around a few places what people wanted me to do, and the overwhelming answer was they wanted a deep dive on how to price out your app services. And then I'm going to build an app that'll help you build like a quote based off of all of this information that we're going to go over. That's what I got. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, do all of that good stuff. Let's get to it. Hey, it worked this time. I've been having problems with that automatic transition there at the end. It didn't want to go. So what do I want to talk about for the first thing? All right, first thing real quick, right? A couple of weeks ago, I went over how to make a grouped PDF, and I advanced the reports sample app that I had, right? And so now I finally got around to fiddling around with all the little bits and got it all put into place. And so you can get your copy of the reports sample app for the grouped PDF. It's on my profile now, link in the description down below. And the real thing to look at when you're looking at this app, there's not all that much that changed inside the app itself as far as, you know, column settings, setups, views, slices, things of that nature. That didn't really change that much. A few things did. You can watch the video, link in the description too. The biggest thing to check out though is if you go and you open up the sample app and you go to the automation tab and you look at the reports table, right? There's this make or update report. And inside here, we have the actual task to update the report. And if you go in here, you can find the template file. And I can't view it because I'm just looking at the copy here, but when you make a copy of this, you'll be able to then go look at this doc template, right? And you'll be able to see how did I get the whole nested thing going on. It's all about, and I think if this should load if I click on it like that. Yeah, perfect. And so this is a prime example of what the nested PDF report looks like. I've got this individual group here for asphalt paving, and then all of these records inside the table are the asphalt paving records. And then if I scroll down, I have casework, I have construction clean and final clean, so on and so forth. Get your copy on my profile now. If you have any questions or difficulty with the whole group thing, you just let me know and I can do a further deep dive onto the individual little topics that are giving people problems. The next thing that I want to talk about for this little intro section here is really just a PSA for my Patreon supporters. As I've been talking with a lot of you over the months, I've noticed that there is a difficulty with finding the folder that I have shared with you. I've tried to make this as easy as possible for everybody involved. So the thing that you should do is just go to your Google Drive, however you go there, right? And there's a search bar right at the top. Just right there at the top, search for Patreon. When you do that, it's going to immediately find this guides Patreon folder. That's the one that I shared with you. And everything that you need, all of the auto tables that I have in there and the corresponding guides that tell you how to use the tables and like what's the advanced things you can do, those are all in there. There's a Google Sheet that has all of the testing auto tables that I'm working on releasing to people, but I need to kind of make sure it all works. They're in there so you can play with them. Everything you need's in that folder. Just go to the search bar in your Google Drive and search Patreon. That's all I got for this front little section. Let's move on to the comments. All right, we got some good comments this time, and I did put a little teasers of what the comments were down in the description. If you look in the YouTube comment section, you'll see which each of the 4 things that I'm going to cover this time. The first one here comes from Kage. Kage asks, he was watching the video, or she, sorry, don't know, they, whatever, watching the quick update system, and they were asking, does this work on deleting the child record too? So this specific video down here is how to update a parent from a child update. And so, Kage, I assume what you're looking for here is, if I delete the child record, can I delete the parent record? Or correspondingly, if I delete the parent, can I delete the child? Okay, so there's 2 things. So let's just 2 things there, right? Going 2 directions. So let's start with the one. So if we start from the parent and then delete the child. All right. If you mark the is a part of on the child table as true, you turn on that toggle. There's a system in play to where when you delete the parent, it's supposed to delete the children that correspond to what you deleted. Now that system doesn't work all the time. And so in fact, it doesn't work most of the time for me. Like every time I try it, it seems like it doesn't work. So I usually, whenever I have that scenario, I just build that out myself. In automation, you can't do it in actions because of order of operations. In order for an action to be able to do something inside your app, it has to have something to work with. As in, it needs a record to work with. So if you delete the record that you want to do something with, you can't do anything with it because it's been deleted. Follow? But automation is different. Automation is the place where when you delete something, it'll be like, whoa, 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 whoa. All right, first off, we need to take this record that you're going to delete and we need to do whatever. All right, now you can delete it, right? So that's what you do, is on the child table, right? You create an action that runs the delete action on the parent table for whatever record that child, right, for the reference of the child record, right? So it's one of those run an action on a set of rows, right? And the rows you're doing it for is the list of the parent that the child belongs to. And the action you want to do is the delete. That's it. There you go. And then you can have the trigger for that on the child record delete. So when a child record is deleted, it wipes out the parent too. You might want to be careful with that. I'm sure you can see how that could, there are probably some instances where you're going to delete the child record, but you don't want the parent to go away. Do you know what I mean? So keep that in mind. Just FYI. Don't want anybody to break their app. You know what I mean? Believe me, I have been down that road before. It's not very fun. The next question comes from Ami. Ami was watching last week's live stream, and he's not asking, it's a comment about the new database feature. He says, in regards to the new database feature, Amazon's Honeycode did it 2 years ago. Nothing like good competition between giants, right? Amen to that, brother. The next comment I'll go over is from Hakan Demir. This was for the video about using automations to do a mass update to tables. So that video was a clip from a live stream, and after I had put that clip together, I kind of realized that update thing that I was talking about, it's basically an automation version of the quick update system. Like, it's almost exactly the same thing. You could run the quick update system through that thing, and it'll run through automation. Interesting little things. But the question Hakan asks is, can I call up information in 2 different columns using a single text field? The answer is yes. This is actually a very common thing that I'll do. For instance, let's say I've got an invoice, right? So obviously my invoice is probably going to have like a number. The invoice belongs to maybe obviously probably a client and maybe a project of some kind, or maybe like a, a phase of that project. So I'd want the name of that invoice to contain most of that information. Like I'd want to know what client belongs to, what project it's for, and the invoice number itself, right? So what I usually do, and this is actually something I do in a lot of tables that I do, is I'll include a secondary column that's a label. And like that's the one that I actually mark as the label inside the app. And the whole idea is that this has an app formula with a concatenate formula inside it that's looking at all of the stuff inside the record, and it's building like a text value. So it'll be like concatenate the client's name with a space, or maybe like a colon and then a space, and then the project name and then a space and then a square bracket and a hashtag or a number sign, whatever you call it, and then the invoice number, and then close the square bracket. You see what I mean? Like I construct the whole thing, so when I'm done, I get this nice little label. And then I'll use that for the label, right? I'll give that to the invoice building system and have it use that for the invoice file name, right? Another common thing I do using the same method of like taking a whole bunch of stuff and concatenating it all together is I'll use a show text column, right? That's like if you have the standard starting template, at the beginning of it, there's that gray section. You've got a page, there's a header bar, there's a header, and there's info text. That info text, the reason that's there is because I use it all the time. What I'll do is I'll build a concatenate inside that show text column that takes the client's name, the project's name, the date when we started, the whatever, you know what I mean? And I'll construct like this little header thing up at the top. So instead of showing somebody 5 fields, which would require me to like scroll on the screen because each field takes up, a block of space. So if I got 5 of them, you know what I mean? So I can take all 5 of those, get rid of them, like hide them in the form. So they show everywhere else, but in the form, they're gone. And then take all of that data that I just hid and concatenate it into this show thing so that it's like this big now. You know what I mean? So yeah, absolutely. It's all about just creating the formula that you want to concatenate a whole bunch of stuff together in the space that you want it to do. And I would advise also, you might be tempted to just create a virtual column to do this. That adds virtualization to your app. So like every time your app is syncing, right? The reason it takes so long is because you have all this virtualization going on. You got a bunch of slices, bunch of virtual columns, right? All of this takes time. So you try and reduce that as much as you can. So like things like this, where we're talking about the value is based on the values inside the record and it never changes unless I change the values in the record. That's a static value. It just needs to be a physical column, right? The next thing, if I can get it, there we go. The next one comes from Anna Marie. It's for the Enhanced Dashboard app, and she asks, thanks for the video, helped a lot, but after 100 times of looking, sorry you had to look that many times, I still can't figure out how to use row filter conditions without people having to log in. I hope you can help me. Well, I'm really sorry that you had to look 100 times to find that, because I actually have a sample app that I put out a while ago that shows how you can create a public app that has private data without the login aspect of things. Now, I should preface all of this stating this is a gray area when it comes to the terms of service for AppSheet. You cannot create your own login system utilizing, like a sheet and then like another one where I have like the names and their passwords and then I just compare it. Like you can't do that and put that in an app that doesn't already have login. Do you know what I mean? Because like what's really going on there, like if we keep it real, like what's really going on there is it's going to cost you $5 or $10 per person that's using your app, and you don't want to pay that because you're going to have a boatload of people using it. So you just want to get away with the $50 free app, right? I'm keeping it real, right? So like a lot of people are trying to get around that cost by just doing the free app and then making it like I'll have my own little login thing. All right, that is against AppSheet's terms of service. And if you get caught doing that, okay, right? Now that I put that out there, here's how you can do it. This has been out there for a while. I got a video. I put a link to the app and the video in the description already. So this app requires a Publisher Pro license. Doesn't require somebody to log in, but the whole idea is like they can create a profile, and then because of how the pseudo security that's built into this style of app works, it's all built on the user settings, and user settings are device specific, which means the settings that I have on my phone are different from the settings that I have on my computer. So in order to make a smooth operating, like pseudo login type of system, you need a way to where one person can link multiple devices to their app. And that's what this sample app largely shows you how to do. Somebody can create their profile, right? And then anytime they move to a different device, they can link their device. They just come in here and they say, what's the phone number that you used? And then you hit submit. It's all based on phone numbers. And then the idea is you submitted a phone number, the system looks up what emails associated with that phone number and sends an email to that person saying, hey, somebody just tried to link their device to your account. Was this you? Almost like a two-factor authentication type of thing, right? And if you say yes to that, to the email has a link that'll take you to the app. If you say yes to that then that new device will be allowed. Granted, you got to go to the old device and say yes on that, because that's where you have the original access. Follow? Anyways, and then once you do that, the system largely runs just like a regular current user system would. The only thing it's doing is, if we go and we look in the slices, we've got this current user. The way that it works is we're checking to see is the device, the device's UID for the device that you're using, is that inside this list on your user record of your approved linked devices. If it is yes, then it shows that record, and that record becomes your current user, and then everything functions just like a current user would. Again, I put it out there for academic purposes. This was a discussion that we've had in the community for years, way back when, and like nobody ever did it. And so I'm like, I'm going to do it. I want to see what will happen. Let's see if you can do it. See where the problems are. And I put it out there for everybody to see. Just keep in mind, I have fully warned you about the terms and services and all that, and I'm not going to be held responsible if your account is shut down because you decided to go around it. Just saying, keeping it real. Hey, but that's how you can do it. Awesome. That's all I've got for the YouTube comments. Let's move on to the deep dive. All right, I skipped one because there's nothing in the release notes. Time for the weekly rundown, right? So what's been going on with AppSheet? Whole lot of nothing. No release notes, no announcements. There's maybe been some discussion inside the community on some of the newer release features. I know the enhanced editor, like the newer editor things that they put out there, there's been some good discussion over there. The largest thing that happened this week, the Google Next 22, right? I don't know if anybody had a chance to check out any of the AppSheet related stuff like that. To be honest with you, I didn't engage in anything because, I'm maybe beyond what they're going to be presenting there. Just keeping it real. But I did look around and see what were the things that people were talking about that came out of that. And the biggest news, the biggest hubbub, if you will, right? One of the biggest things that people are talking about is they demonstrated how you can do an AppSheet app with Google Chat and kind of do this back and forth type of thing. And so there's a lot of articles that are being written right now about that. It's all really cool news. But that's that's all that really happened. Yeah, there's not a whole lot going on. In the chat, let me know if you attended one of the lectures, or if there was a workshop that you went through that was really cool. If you want, right, we could do a little thing where you could record something, show it next week or something, whatever. Anyways, that's all that's going on for this one. The next thing, I could do the intro, but we just did it. I'm just going to move on to the deep dive. So, my Patreon supporters have been asking a few questions of me that are deep questions. They are heavy things to answer, right? And the first thing that I want to go over is a question that I got from Christian DeRamos, and he asks, how can I organize large data sets? Says, as I am conceptualizing my data, I realize that I have lots of tables. I know when we spoke, we had a discussion that you recommended one big app, but do you recommend one big sheet too? Or should I break my sheets into modules, i.e. operations, employees, products, orders, etc.? I know getting the data organized and right early is best for the performance and longevity, right? I was just wondering your thoughts on this. So, the general advice, right, is least number of things involved is best in all situations, usually. So, if you just think about when your device is connecting to AppSheet servers, right? So the AppSheet server, if we go through it step by step, if I had 12 sheets inside my app, and I had every single one of those inside a separate file. Okay, when AppSheet is then reaching out to go get the data from wherever I'm storing it, right? There's now 12 separate files that the AppSheet server has to connect and then read and get the data from. 12 separate instances, right? Okay. Now, if I were to take all 12 of those and put them in one file, now I've got one file access with 12 reads associated with it versus 12 file accesses with 12 file reads. You get what I mean? I'm trying to keep things to the least number of terms possible, which includes the number of sheets. Now, that being said, if you're building an app that's going to get big, right? And like we're talking about, maybe I've got a sheet where project this out. How often are you going to collect data in that sheet? How many records will be created each time you do that? How often does that happen a month? Times that by 12, how many records are you going to get in a year, right? And you might find that some of your tables are like, we're going to have tens of thousands. We're going to get to like 50, 80, 90, 100,000 maybe in the year. Okay, for those tables, the ones where they're going to get giant, right? Take those tables and move those into a separate file. And depending on how big you expect those sheets to get, maybe you just put all of those in one file so that your app only has two separate things. I've got one that has all of my smaller tables, and then I've got like these data collection tables, right? And then maybe you've got one table inside there where it's like, we've got like this stock taking table where we're going to have people going through every day and counting all of the items, creating one record for each one. And there's like 700 at each place. And we've got 5 places that we're going to do that at. Like, we're talking thousands and thousands of records a day, right? Okay. So clearly that table is going to get freaking huge. So that one, I would move it by itself, right? Because that thing's going to like have an impact on all the other ones. So I want that all by itself. And then we just keep projecting this, right? You keep filling that sheet up. Clearly, you'll need to figure out some way to like archive some of the data out of that sheet. So like eventually, the data that's in there doesn't need to be there anymore. So delete it, move it into another sheet that's like an archive. Or if you have the enterprise license, just put it in a SQL server and you can largely just call it good. You'll need to monitor that because they can only get so big. But SQL servers are made for like hundreds of thousands of records. So like you're good over there for a long time. And then like when you reach that point to where it's starting to struggle, like you just one of those where it's like, well, we've got 10 years of data over there. So let's just get rid of the last 5. Just clone, copy over there, done, right? Yeah. So that's my general advice for when it comes to doing large data sets is I only put the large data collection tables. I'll separate those off into something else, but I try and keep everything inside one if I can. Thanks for the question, Christian. Much appreciated. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is not from any one specific person. It's actually something that I've been asked from a lot of people over the years, and it's, how do you know how much to charge for your services? You know, like, where do you just grab this number out of the sky? You ask somebody like me and just do what I do. I prefer a more scientific approach, if you will. So the first rule of thumb that I'll say, right, is only charge people what you feel that you're worth. And by that, I mean, we're talking about you're going to have to convince somebody to give you a large sum of money, right? However large that is. Okay, you need to be able to sell that. And I'm not talking like, oh, I need to, salesy, pressurize, pressure. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like when you're talking about the thing that you did, you can't be like, you can't be like that, because you've got to be like, this is what I'm worth. You know what I mean? So only charge something that you're confident that you can tell somebody, this is what I want. You get what I mean? And then like start pushing that a little bit, just a little bit, because whatever you're comfortable at, that's not enough. Add $10 or more, like go a little higher. All right. But where do you start from? Right. All right. The thing to do, this is what I did in the very beginning. If you do some research online, this is what they'll all kind of tell you to kind of go about this same method thing. First thing you need to do is figure out, what do you actually need, right? So like take all your bills, take like, what do you spend on food? What do you spend on healthcare, childcare, everything? Like, what do you need to live, to pay all your bills, so that you're not sitting here going, this sucks, I don't have money. Like, no. What's the point where you're good and you can be happy, right? Find that number. It's the first thing you need to do. And I actually have, I kind of went through and made a little list already here, right? So add up all your bills for everything in the month, and that's how much you need. All right, then divide that number by how many hours you're willing or wanting to work in the month, right? Because the idea is you set your own schedule. So how many hours do you want to work a month? All right, so you've got your total of money that you need in order to pay all your bills and do everything, right? Let's say that that's $2,000. All right, so then take however many hours you want to work in the month and divide your $2,000 by that. That's what you need to charge people for every hour of your work, bare minimum, right? But that's not the actual number that you need to use, because that doesn't take into consideration taxes. That doesn't take into consideration any kind of processing fees that you're going to incur, because however you're getting your money, unless this person's handing you cash, there's a processing fee involved, right? So the thing that I say to do is find your bare minimum hourly rate, add 25% or so for taxes, depending on whatever your country's tax laws are. Of course, don't take my word for it. Go get the opinion of an authorized, blah, 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 licensed tax professional. There you go. That's the thing I'm looking for. Boilerplate, baby. So add 25%, and then also add like 5% or more. That bottom one for processing fees, that's something that you can like go figure out yourself. Go look at whatever platform that you're using for processing, and the fees are right there. 3 point whatever percent is usually what it is. 2 point something percent. So, and then maybe there's like a percentage or like a dollar amount. So you got to figure that out, and then take all of that into consideration and add that on top of the taxes that you got to have to your bare minimum. And whatever that number comes to, that is what you need to charge people for the bare minimum, right? All right. So that gets you to the point to where it's like, okay, I need to charge people $37.42 to pay all my bills based on how many hours I want to work for the month, right? All right, let's just round that up. I need 40 bucks an hour. That's what I got to do in order to pay my bills. Okay. Now that you've got this number of 40 bucks an hour, now what you got to figure out is how long does it take you to do the things that you do? Do you know what I mean? Like, how long does it take you? Here you go. How long does it take you to build a simple table? Something like 10 columns. Now, I'm not talking about how long does it take you to do the whole thing? Like, how long did it take you to build your last app? That's not what I'm like. Take that into consideration, yes, but that's not what I'm focusing on. What I'm really focusing on is I want you to sit down and maybe, get a timer out and time yourself for this. How long does it take you to do each of the little individual things that it takes to build the app? Right? Not the whole thing in the whole, because every app you build will have all of these pieces, but like the amount of the size of the different pieces that you do will be different. Some have less tables, but they have more actions. Some have more tables, but they don't need as many actions. You get what I mean? So the thing you do is go through and time yourself. How long does it take you to build a simple app? Or just to build, not a simple app. How long does it take you to build a simple table with something like 10 columns? Like, just literally, how long does it take you to go to Google Sheets, make the Google Sheet, start putting in the columns, name the thing, format it so it fits your preferences? You know what I mean? Everybody's kind of whatever, finicky about their sheets. How long does that whole thing take you? Because now, take that, and that's the thing that you can use. You have this now. You have a variable that you can use. It takes me a minute and 30 seconds, right? It takes me a minute and a half to do 10 column table. All right. Well, now I can take that minute and a half and I can like objectively figure out like a real number of how long it's going to take me to build the tables, just that, of whatever system that we're talking about we're going to build. Because I can sit there and say, we got these tables we want, we got these data points that you want to collect, right? So I've got a list somewhere that we've already talked about in an email or something, And so I'm just going to go through and just start doing some basic math. That's the one thing. Do this for everything. How long does it take you to conform the column settings? Or how long does it take you to make the views? How long does it take you to set up some basic automation? How long to set up certain actions? How long to install the current user system or the quick update system? Like these standardized sorts of functionality modules that you can build inside your app. Like these are things that you're going to put in all of your apps. So figure out how long it takes you to do that one thing. You know what I mean? So, and like record this somewhere, make a spreadsheet. And if you want to do it right, maybe don't just record one data point. Like realistically, like when you time yourself, like you should time yourself at least 10 times, because that's going to give you a good variable of size of numbers, and you can get some good data from that. But that, right? Once you figure out these numbers, then you can put everything together. I can say, this is how many minutes and seconds and, total hours it's going to take me to build all of this stuff that we've been talking about, you and me as the client, right? And I know what you want. I've got this idea, the scope of work maybe that I've built out. And so from that, I can start counting things and I can start thinking and be like, all right, well, I'm going to need to do this. I'm going to need to do this. I'm going to need to do this. I'm going to need this many tables. I'll need a whole bunch of automations that do this. I'll need some actions that do that, right? And then just start numbers. I'll need 15 actions. I'll need 22 tables. I'll need 16 slices. I'll need whatnot, and just start doing math. Now, the thing that I did to help me arrive at these numbers of like how long does it take me to do something, that's why I built my time tracker. Because like in the early days when I've just started doing this AppSheet consultancy stuff, building apps for people, helping them upgrade their apps, all of that, I realized, okay, well, what's really going on here is like I'm working by myself. They're not watching me in any way. And later on, I'm just going to go back to them and be like, cool, you owe me a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 because I've done whatever. And I'm just going to be asking these people to trust me that what I say is what I did. I don't like that, me personally. You know what I mean? Like, that means that, like, I could say whatever. Yeah, it took me $10,000 worth of time to get your thing done. Yep. Ha. Like, no, that's not going to work for me, you know? So I realized I need a way to where I can prove to people that I did spend the time that I say I spent. And, like, how can I do that? Well, time logs, right? I can just give them my time logs when I'm working on the thing that I'm working on. That's when I was like, all right, so if I'm going to do that, the other side of that coin is I want to be able to take all of these time logs later on and be able to do like a statistical analysis on them to find out the answers to all of these questions. How long does it take me to set up column settings? How long does it take me to do an automation? How long does it take me to do actions? Okay, so if I can build an app that's a time tracker that's built in such a way that it's easy for me, right? Like when I'm in the middle of doing a thing, it's easy for me to be like, switch to the next task. Then I can get stuff down to the second. And like the result that we have here is I get a ridiculous amount of insight into how long it takes me to do whatever I'm doing. My clients get a ridiculous amount of information that shows that I'm keeping track of things down to the second of what I'm doing, where they can literally see, oh, well, he spent 5 hours, on the 12th, whatever. And you can see, oh, well, he spent 12 seconds doing this, and then a minute and a half doing this, and then 12 minutes, 42 seconds doing this. And then yep. And the way that I built, so all of that, the way that I accomplished all of this is that's my time tracker that I built. That's TT iota. If you're a Patreon supporter of mine, you have access to this. There's 2 versions over there. There's one that's a single person user. It's the one that I use. And then I made a multi-company version so that you could have a whole bunch of people using it if you want. A whole bunch of different companies using it if you wanted. So if you want a copy of that, I'll warn you, it's really advanced. There's a lot going on over there. But if you want to see like what's a high level example of an AppSheet app, head on over to that Patreon thing, and that's where it's at. It's called TT iota. So the whole point of that, right, is I can collect all of this crazy amount of time and then go through and run an analysis on these things so that I then have a single record that says building tables, and it says the minimum amount of time was 12 seconds. The maximum amount of time was half an hour. The average is 12 minutes with a standard deviation of whatever, right? So then we can take that average plus some part of this standard deviation, depending on variable aspects of what we're doing, and we can come to a number. That's not a number that I just pulled out of the sky. It's not a sales number either. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not an inflated number at all. It's literally a statistical breakdown of how long it will take me to do the thing that we're projecting that I'm going to do based on statistics, based on hundreds, if not thousands of time logs that I've put into my system already. I've got a system that runs over all of that and gives me these numbers. Like, when you have that behind you, right, as the person who's presenting somebody with an invoice for several thousands of dollars, like when I have that behind me, like that is the support that will get you past any kind of questions that somebody has on like, well, did he really spend this long? Is he really selling me? Is it really going to take that long? Yeah, because I can literally just put into my system, these are the things that your app needs, and I can have my statistical numbers be like, cool, there you go. Yep. We can come to a number. So that's what I've done in order to help me quote and estimate and come up with like, what am I going to charge the people that I'm billing? Do you know what I mean? And since I've done that, like, man, I'll be honest with you. Yeah. Like I've I have had people where they dug into the time logs that I gave them and they asked some questions, right? But it wasn't like, were you wasting my time here? It was more like, well, I noticed that in the time logs, there was a whole bunch of these things on this one day that was for this, that was for whatever. You had some notes in there about this thing that we've been talking about. Was there some problem? Was there some, you know what I mean? And like, they were able to use the invoices and all the data inside that to kind of like pick out situations where there was clearly something going on and we could figure out, well, what happened? And put a button on that one because I remember the specific situation. That specific situation was they had users that they didn't inform me that they were adding to the system, that were using the system, and I was working on it, and it was causing some friction because I didn't know these people were using it, right? But they were able to see that, and like they didn't think to tell me that they were bringing these new people on board because it's just part of the natural system. But they didn't, right? Because I'm working at odd times and everything. So anyways, the thing I'll do for the rest of this time, right, is I'm going to put together a quick sample app starting from absolute scratch that will let me build a quote, right? And I'm going to do this. Just hold on while I'm finding my Google Drive folder. Let me make a new folder for this. I'm going to call this quick quotes. And I will make a quick, let's see how fast we can do a quick little app. And I'm going to like keep it simple type of thing. You know what I mean? So what do I want? So here's a blank spreadsheet. You can see I got nothing down here. So let's call this sheet. What do we want? So first thing I want to call this is we're talking about estimating things, right? So, tasks? Not sure what to call the first part of this. The idea, this is the list of the things that we do that take us so long, right? So like, I'll just keep it tasks. So like I have task name, I have task duration, and then like task ID. And that would be largely what I would start with. As I go, I know I'll need to add more, but I'm just going to stick with this. So this is quick quotes. So the idea on this task table is I'm just going to be able to put in like building tables, doing this, making actions, doing that, you know what I mean? And then like have a duration for each of those. Because the idea is then I can be like, okay, well, I'm going to need to do this 15 times. So you can kind of see where this is going. Like already the direction that this app is taking like is already in the sense of what happened to the what happened to me? I disappeared. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. All right. Technical difficulties, mate. Technical difficulties. There we go. Bring it back. Oh, I bet you that's what it was. I know what was going on. Some weirdness. Sorry. Technical difficulties here. Let me get back on track here. So what I'm doing here, you can kind of already see that the path that this app, like the direction this is taking, is already kind of like the shopping cart, right? I'm going to have a list of products, a list of tasks. I'm going to have a quote that I'm building, an order, right? And the quote's going to have like quote items, quote line items, like order details. You hear where I'm going with this? Like the functionality to create the quoter that I want to build is basically the shopping cart. So I could start from scratch, or I could just go copy the shopping cart and just change the names of the tables, you know what I mean? Just like reformulate what the things are. And there's my quote builder, because the idea is the same thing. The idea is the same concept of like selling a product, because the way that I'm estimating my prices is I'm breaking it down based on each individual AppSheet task that I need to do versus how long do I think it's going to take me to do the whole thing? Like, you know what I mean? You could do that, but realistically, if we think about how you would get to that point, you would get there because you would do what I'm talking about. You would piece together all these little things and come up to be like, all right, well, I'll probably spend half an hour doing this. It'll probably take me a few hours to do this, a few hours to do that. The total would be 50, right? But this is a better way, if you will, because it's more granular. And we're doing it based on facts and numbers, which is how I prefer to roll if I can. So I've got my list. I'm just going to continue with my small little app here and see how far we can get in like maybe 10 minutes. So start a timer. So tasks, here we go. I got my task name and the duration. I obviously need another thing down here. So this is going to be like the quote. And then I'm going to make another one that's going to be like the quote items. All right. Quotes, I will have like, what's the client name? What's the quote date? And like, this will be the quote client name, quote date, quote price. I guess I could. I really want to keep that virtual though. So I'll just leave it ID. I want to know, who does it belong to? You see now, this is where it's like, there's really not that much, nothing is essential at this point that I'm going to throw in here other than the ID. Like legit. If I make this bold, like, you know, I could do like project, but you know, I'm just getting into like, you know, filler. Like this is all filler. The only thing that matters is that I have the record, right? All right. Quote items, the quote item. So obviously the QI, I'll do that for my prefix of the column. So quote item, quote link. So obviously reference connecting this to the quote. I need the quote item task. What task am I doing? Quote item quantity, quote item cost. Yeah, so I guess if I go to my tasks, I'm saying, yep, this, okay. And then what I could do, I could come in here and I could put inside my quote a quote per hour price. So that depending on the client that I'm quoting, I can use different per hour rates. Like this guy's at 40 per hour. This guy's at 50. This one's at 100 and this one's at 12. That one's at 120. FYI, I'm paying attention to the chat. I see Jared's here. What's up, buddy? Thanks for joining. If you have suggestions or any things where it's like, oh, you should put this in there, throw it in the chat. Better do it before I get beyond the point though. Just throwing it out there so you know. You have the chance. Whatever you'd like to see, I'll throw it in. All right, so my quote has a per hour price. My task has how long it takes to do whatever it takes to do. Combining those things together will get me how many of the tasks I want to do will give me a cost. I'll make that bold. I like to bold and freeze the first rows. And so we obviously need a QI ID. All right, we run through our tables for this really small thing that I'm doing here. I'm talking about, I have a list of tasks with a duration. Cool. I have a quote where I can say how much I'm doing it per day, per hour. And the idea is that this duration will literally be a duration. So I can just add these all up and it'll, you know, be a nice duration number. So I can be like 1 hour. 1 hour would be like 1 point whatever. Perfect. And for the items, I'm saying this is connected to the quote. This is connected to the task, which will bring in whatever durations involved. I can say how many of this thing that I want, how many times the duration gives me how long it will take to do. Maybe I'll just throw that in too. So I'll have like QI, can't see, QI estimated duration, right? Sure, why not? So yep, quantity times how long the task takes gives me the duration times the quote per hour gives me the total cost. And in the quote, I have a total thing that's a virtual that's summing all of the quote items. The end result will be a quote. There you go. Well, last thing I'll throw in here, just as I'm thinking about it, I will make a quote file. Because I'm going to print this, obviously. You know what I mean? All right, now that I'm thinking about that, I'll also want a quote email list so that if I want to email this quote to some people, I can have a place to put the email list. And okay, on another spot, you see how you just logically just keep building off itself. And after the email list, then I want to be able to like email note. I want a space where I could type in a note if I wanted to. So I go through and fill out all of this stuff, complete all of the quote items, and then I can generate the file. Okay, in order to generate the file, I'm going to want to be able to say like, this thing is done. So just like the shopping cart where I've got a status, I'm going to want a status for this as well. Quote status. Yep. So the status will say whether or not we're done or not. We've got the email list and the notes so that we can add it. Cool. All right. I'm going to start with the quote table. So I'm going to move that over here to the front so that it's the first one. That AppSheet will pick that as the first thing, and we just go here and say, make me an app, AppSheet. Thanks for making the button so easy. Do appreciate it. All right. Hey, let's see. We've got our quote. First thing we do, go through and make sure all the columns are what we want. So you can see it set this row number to be the ID. Clearly not. I want that to be this text. I'm going to hide this, and I'm going to do unique ID. Cool. So that's that. Okay, back up here. So the client name, this could just be a text. Actually, what I'll do is I'll make this enum that can add and it remembers with a base type text with a drop down. That's required. Got to have a client name. I'm going to do the same thing for the project. The project will be an enum text that adds and remembers, and you can do a drop down, but I'm not going to make that required. Description is long text. Date is a date. The default of today. The quote per hour price is a price. That's required with no initial value. Works for me. File's a file. Status needs to be an enum with like building or ready. Sure. You can fill that in however, whatever words you'd want to use there. I'm going to make it required and take my building and put it into the initial value so that it starts with this status. My quote email list needs to be an email list of emails that I can add and it remembers with a drop down. The email note is a long text. Good to go. All right. Save that. That's all of that. Okay. It's first table. Next, let's get the quote. Let's do the tasks because quote items is going to need the tasks in order to get itself set up right. All right, tasks. Go and look at the column structure. Yep, it got the ID. We can hide that. I don't need to see it. It got unique ID. Perfect. The name is a name. No, I'd rather that just be a text. Duration is duration. Sets this as at 0. I'd rather it just be blank. And the task name needs to be required. That's the tasks. Okay. We go get our last one, the quote items. This quote items ID and the ID works for me. I will make the task, the label for these. So the quote ID, I will hide it. It's got unique ID, cool. Coming up here, so the quote, this needs to be a reference to the quotes, and it is a part of. Okay, and I'm gonna hide this outside of the form. Okay. The task, this needs to be a reference to the tasks. Actually, you know, I could make this an enum. I think I'll make this one an enum. Base type reference to the tasks with a dropdown. And for that, I'm going to need to come in here and make a valid if. That's going to pull in all of the task IDs because I have to populate this with items. All right. So now this will give me a list of all of the tasks in the system. This is required. Okay. Quantity is a number. I'm just going to turn this to, well, you know, whatever. I'll leave it. Whatever. Duration is a duration. It sets that to the 0 thing. Again, I want it to be blank. That way I can just drop into it. Well, no, this is something I'm going to make a formula for this, right? So duration and price. Okay, let's save it so the references propagate. Now I can come into my estimated duration and I can say take the quantity and times that by the task dot, go back to my task table, my task duration. Like, there you go. How many times how long gives me how long. Does this not work? Can I not multiply a duration times the... All right, fair enough. Then I will do a total minutes. All right. That'll work. You see it's valid, but its type is a decimal, not a duration. Fair enough. So I'm changing this from not being a duration anymore. Now it's going to be a decimal that represents the duration, right? So save that. I need to change this to a decimal here. Yep. Sure, show the thousands, do whatever. Decimal digits, we'll do 2. Okay, I'm going to save it so it propagates. All right. Now I can take this decimal and I can say take this estimated duration. This actually gets easier. And times that by the quotes hourly rate. Now, obviously, there's a whole bunch of nuance and things that you could do in order to expand this. I could add a client table where the clients control, where that table controls how much I'm charging each person. Do you know what I mean? Reference, connect these quotes to the clients. There's obviously a bunch of stuff that I could do to move forward. It's kind of the whole point. This is a great starting point. All right, so now that I got the tables in here and they're all connected together, if I look at quotes, I have related quote items. All right, next thing I want to do is I want to make a quote total. So this is going to be a virtual column because I need it to be a live thing. And what I'm saying is run a sum on all of the related quote items total cost. Just like that. And the thing I'm doing here is a list dereference, so there is no period between the two, right? When you're doing a list, it's no dot. When you're doing a single thing, there is a dot. The way that I remember that is if I'm doing 1, I need the point for the 1. So I do it. So I've got this sum of all of the costs. This should be the total. All right, save it so it propagates. Okay, so now I've got the basics of everything that I need to set up a real simple quote. Thing I'll do is I need a view to show me the tasks so that I can make tasks, because that's actually the first thing that I need to do in order to, before I can quote, I need to put tasks in the system. And so like this is where you could just come in here and you could be like building tables, right? And how long does this take me? Well, it takes me no hours and 12 minutes, right? That's the idea. All right, now that I'm thinking about this, you could make this a tool that you could use. This harkens back to something that I was talking with another Patreon supporter about, where I actually use AppSheet for more than just building apps for whatever. I actually use AppSheet to help me assimilate information. Because, side tangent here, if I'm building an app to help me track or, whatever for something, that means that I have to know all the ins and outs. I have to have all the variables. I have to have all the bits and pieces inside the app somehow, in a table, in a column, in order for me to get to that final thing that I'm trying to do, right? So by building an app, that will help you uncover all of the hidden variables that are involved with whatever's happening. And so AppSheet can be a valuable tool to help you assimilate a new topic that you're trying to learn. So I use AppSheet for that. The other thing that I also use AppSheet for is I literally use AppSheet as like a data processing tool. Like, I need to make a file. Like a lot of the files that I release for like my Patreon supporters about how to do things, a lot of that's generated from an AppSheet app. Because I know I'm not just going to generate the one file. I'm going to want to generate a whole bunch of files using the same template. So I use AppSheet to build the template, to store the data, and to make the files. Literally do that. I do it to fix data. Like if I know that I need to populate some data inside of a sheet, right? Instead of building a script to do that, or trying to come up with some kind of Google Sheet formula or Excel formula to make it work, well, I could just make a slice to isolate out the records that I need. Probably pretty easy. Like, hey, is that column blank? There you go. Those are the ones I need to fix. Then I can make an action that does the thing that I need it to do. And the benefit here is that I'm in AppSheet, so I have access to all of that reference supporting information and all this, that, and whatever, right? So like, make a slice, make the action, make the automation that runs the action on all of the records in the slice, run the action, done. I just fixed everything I needed to do. I just created a bunch of records that, like for supporting, say I'm adding some middle layers into my database. I'll create systems inside AppSheet to build that middle layer for me. Instead of me having to go to the Google Sheet, copy the things and like reduce duplicates and strip all the stuff out and do this, that, and whatever. No, man, I'll build an app to do it because it's far easier over there in AppSheet. Just a thing to keep in mind. AppSheet's a very versatile thing, very versatile tool. So what I was getting at, versatile tool, I would actually build this in such a way, like if I just change this a little bit, where like if I go to my tasks, instead of having a just straight duration, if I put a couple of columns in here where I'm like task start, task end, right? You see where I'm going with this? Like I can legit make this app have that time tracking ability that I was talking about. We're like, start a timer to keep track of how long it takes you to do whatever. Just add a couple of columns to my app here. They're both times. I need to come over here and make sure that I get rid of this one, the closing one. I want the start time to initialize to now. Yep. So when I make the record, it's that. And then I will set the stop time myself. So like now I need an action that lives on the task table that sets the end time to time now, since it's time. And this would be like stop timer, right? And then like make this a timer. Yup, like that. We'll have it this, and we will display it if is not blank the end time. Or I'm sorry, if is blank. Damn my dyslexia. If is blank the end time. Show this stop timer, and I'll make a confirmation. That way you don't accidentally bump it and close it when you didn't want to. So now I can come over here to my task and I can say, like, all right, I'm building my repository of tasks inside my quote system, right? All right, I know that I need to keep track of building tables, right? So then I'm like, I can do this. And then when I'm ready to go, I can be like, all right, we did that at 11:08 is when we started it. And now I'm over here, and I've got the ability that when I'm actually done, I go about doing my thing, blah, 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 blah. And then when I finally get to the point that I'm actually done, I can come back over here, and I can come back over here, and I can hit my stop button. And now I've got my duration actually based off of the time that it needed to be. Oh, yeah, I need to set the time formula, right? But yeah. This is the end minus the start. Got to do that. With that, now if I come back in here and save this record, there we go. Yeah, clearly, whatever. But, that's the whole idea. And then, I can do this for all of the task records that I need to put inside my system. So if I just generate some real fast things real quick, where it's I can say this is 11:10, and I'll say that this is that, you know what I mean? So that this took 8 minutes. Building a view, right? And then I can have another one where, again, I'm just kind of fudging this stuff now to where I can just get some times into the system so that we can move forward and make it work. This is my automation thing. Now, obviously, these are really, really, really basic, really high level type of stuff. You know what I mean? You'd want to go into a little more nuance than this, right? But just, grain of salt, right? All right, so now there's that. And if I come over to my quote and I say I'm going to create a new quote for my Billy client, our price that we've decided on is $40 an hour. And so now if I go to my building thing, I can create quote items. And so what do I want to do? All right, well, we're going to add 15 tables. We're going to, I'm going to fix this building tables so that it has a real time that actually works. Yeah, there we go. That's better. And I have to come back in here and update this so that, yeah, there we go. All right, so it's all right, we've got 15 tables. We're going to create a whole slew of automations. And then we've got a couple of views that we need to make that are hyper specific. Maybe we only got 6 of those. And so then the whole idea is at the very end, we've got this number that gives us this total price at the very end. And this total price is not based on any kind of pie in the sky, random, whatever. It can be based on actual physical numbers. Took me more than 10 minutes. This is 20, 25, 30. I did a lot of extraneous extra stuff inside there, a lot of talking. But anyways, that's real simple quote system right there. I will make this real quick, dirty, simple sample app available if anybody wants to make a copy of it. But to be honest, just go copy this shopping cart. That's going to be better than this one. It has more involved in it already. Yeah. Anyways, that's all I got for this one. Appreciate y'all watching. I see nobody's got any questions. Fair enough. Let me know. I'll stick around. I'll kind of no questions, no nothing, no burning things that you're working on, no hard walls that you're hitting. I know how that goes. It's never fun. I'll tell you personally myself, everything has been smooth sailing this week. I haven't been getting as much done as I want. You know how that goes. There's never enough days in the day. I'm always wishing that I had 36 or 42 hours in the day, and I get finally all of the stuff that I want to get done. I can get all of it done. But anyways, no, doesn't look like anybody's got any burning questions. Yeah, well, thank you all for watching. I do appreciate everybody for sticking around. Next week, I'm going to go over how to do shopping cart part 8. That should be a fun one. That one where I'm going to go into how you can do special offers inside your shopping cart. And that obviously has a whole bunch of nuance. And to be honest with you, that's not going to be a single shot. In order to make that whole system work and have all of the options that I want it to have, it's going to be an ongoing thing. I'm going to have to do 3-4 of these streams about how to do all of this sort of stuff. But I'm talking about like group-based pricing, single-based pricing, special deals where you can throw in, buy 5, get 1 free, or get something % off, do a package deal where it's, get these for this smaller price. Yeah, it's going to be involved with a lot involved. So stick around for that. Thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate it. You guys are the superstars. I'll see you in the community. Peace. Where's the ending?